The discussion tonight is funding for development. And funding for development, if I discussed 2001 to date, I would have left out the important initiatives that government did before that time. So 1993 to 1998, government of Uganda approached the African Development Bank, basically to assist or seek support to assist Ugandans, especially the poor Ugandans, come out of poverty. And at that time, the African Development Bank had a project under the African Development Fund called the Poverty Alleviation Project. And Uganda benefited from that project, and that was government of Uganda's initiative at that time. And so we got the Uganda Poverty Alleviation Project, a 5-year project of about 4.3 billion. And the main purpose for that funding was to assist Ugandans escape poverty, assist the government fight poverty. That was the main purpose. But the major focus was the women. That speaks to the exclusion and equity question. And so that project came on board. It was a 5-year project. It benefited about 70,000 people, 60% of which were women. And we created about 25,000 jobs at that time. So that was the funding before the establishment of the Microfinance Support Center. So the project ends in 2008, but the demand and the needs became so apparent that the government went back in 1999 for a successor project called the Rural Microfinance Support Project. That project this time doubled the funding because of the need that I have highlighted, and we got about 9.7 billion, which was also invested in the economy. And of course, because it was logically flowing from the Poverty Alleviation Project, it means that it was supporting the ongoing efforts at that time to promote the microfinance industry. And it had 3 components. I will tell you shortly why I'm giving you this brief history, because it speaks to the mandate of MSC directly. The first component was the component of capacity building, because it recognized that it is not enough just to give the credit, but to give the accompanying BDS, Business Development Services, because that then speaks to the sustainability of the institutions that we have created. The second component of that project was the component of microcredit and savings mobilization. And if fast forward today, we are talking of a MYOGA, which is based on nothing other than the savings, because without savings, we don't invest, and without investments, there is no real sustainable development. So that was the second component, microcredit and savings mobilization. And the third component was the establishment of the Microfinance Support Center. So that is how far our history goes. But just to speak about the successes of the 3 components, the first component being the microcredit component, we managed to finance at that time 215 projects, which received 417 loans at that time. Remember, it is 1999 to around 2005. And then speaking to the how many people were trained, because there was a capacity building component. Right. How many people were trained? We trained about 13,000 individuals and 486. These are managers and leaders of the institutions at that time. So this is the gains that the project managed to achieve at that time. And the approach was wholesale. We were lending through other institutions, which becomes the mandate of MSC right now. We wholesale credit. We don't give individuals. So that project lasted up to 2008 because there was the initial inertia there, but still it achieved its objective of microcredit savings mobilization of about 3.3 billion at that time were mobilized in the communities. meaning that there is potential for savings mobilization even up to now. And I will discuss for you the, what is working at MSC when that time comes. Then, Microfinance Support Center in August 2001 is established, and for 2 mandates that we are still currently holding. The question was, what do you do at the Microfinance Support Center? At the Microfinance Support Center, we provide affordable development financial services by managing government and partner funds, development funds, and strengthening the institutions of the economically active poor through business development services. Why do we do that? Again, we want these institutions to be off the subsidies. We want to create subsidy-dependent free institutions to make them more viable. They are able now to intermediate financial services at a local level and social services at that. Affordable credit and business development services to economically poor Ugandans. That is what we do at the Microfinance Support Center.
Well, thank you so much, James, for explaining that to us. Now, over to you, Samuel. Tell us more about UDB, who you are, what you do, and what your mandate is.
Thank you very much, Lauren. So UDB is the country's development finance institution or development bank with a mandate to accelerate socio-economic development in Uganda through sourcing and financing sustainable financial projects or through financial interventions. Consistent with that mandate, we do support the private sector by looking for projects that demonstrate the highest potential to, to create social economic value through job creation, being the initial one. Entities, projects that can create jobs to address the current issues around youth unemployment and the levels of unemployment, where we can improve production value and output, that is enhancing products for export, for example, but also increasing output value to support local, regional, and international markets. We also look for entities that will create maximum tax contribution, because without the tax, really, government can't do so much. Plus, we need that also to be capitalized. Also, on the foreign exchange side, we look for entities that will generate the maximum in terms of foreign exchange earnings for the country, but also those that would give us maximum value of foreign exchange savings by import substitution, for example. The projects tend to fall within priority areas that we have chosen based on, what we have best, our natural resources. So we have agro processing. We look also at primary agriculture. How do we enhance that, for example, on the output value side? How do we enhance the ability to produce, to export, to not only feed ourselves, but to be potentially the food basket for the region and the continent? We look at manufacturing. Social economic transformation can really be leveraged or maximized through manufacturing. So we finance businesses in the manufacturing space. We also look at other areas which kind of cut across. For example, tourism. We do have, we are gifted by nature. We have lots in the form of tourist attractions. How do we maximize that to earn foreign exchange, but also to have domestic exposure? How do we open up opportunities? So there's tourism. We do human capital development, because none of that can happen without the human resource, without the people to drive that change, without the people to manage those businesses, without the people to market, without the people to implement those jobs. So in human capital development, we fund vocational and technical institutions which provide the human capital to run and man all these different key sectors. We also look at health, because really we can't do much if our minds, our bodies are not up to the task. So we fund projects in the health space. We're also looking at infrastructure. How do we build the infrastructure necessary to exploit these resources and to make them not only accessible to our people, but to open us up to the world and to open us up in the region. So we also do some ICT in that space, and that really captures what we do in terms of that. The other part of our mandate is really how do we improve the quality of life of our Ugandan citizens? How do we have that inclusive transformation that my colleagues have spoken about? How do we make it benefit everyone? So again, focus, job creation, tax generation, output value, foreign exchange. But maybe to speak to a few milestones, I think since I was last here, the bank's total assets stand at 1.4 trillion. When I was last year, we were talking about 852 billion. So that's about 52% growth from last year.
That's a big leap.
That's a very huge leap.
Where is the leap coming from?
So the leap, again, all credit to government of Uganda. We were capitalized substantially, and we were able to kind of put in place all the mechanisms that were needed, people, processes, technology, to convert, a huge pipeline that we've been consistently building with time of projects that were targeted not only in those particular sectors, in the tourism enhancement, in industry, agro-processing, agriculture. So we did fund a number of projects in that space. The core ones form about 80% of that new portfolio. That is agriculture, agro-processing, and manufacturing is about 80% of the 1.4 trillion.
Yeah.
So it is through those really that we should see huge leaps and bounds in terms of employment that will be created. We will speak to the numbers later. The tax potentially going to be generated, foreign exchange saved, and foreign exchange that's going to be earned from the implementation of all those projects.
Well, that sounds very exciting. A silly question to ask, but I really need to know how many times, especially for you, Sam, and for Dr. Mildred, how many times do you get confused for each other, in terms of, where you work? People, how many times do you hear people asking you, how's UDC, and for you, UDB?
It used to happen quite a bit, but I think we've kind of cleared the air on that. Credit to Mildred and her team at UDC have cleared the air, and they've done some substantial
They've learned how to stand out on their own. I'm sure, but for Mildred, I think you probably still get a few people who look to you as UDB, don't you?
Well, thank you, Ben. I wish to first underscore the fact that UDB and Microfinance Support Center, I want to confirm that we are blood relatives, but we are not the same.
Right.
Yeah. We complement each other. And yes, UDC is Uganda Development Corporation for the sake of emphasis. And where we draw the line with UDB, while we are patient people, we provide patient capital, and we are willing to wait until businesses are able to make adequate returns before we demand for dividends. Our brother UDB
Your
is not
siblings.
that patient. Yes,
Yeah.
they are not very patient. Yeah, so I wanted to highlight that very, very much, that we are very patient people. But again, what makes us close relatives, together with a microfinance support center, is one thing of affordable credit. That is affordable financing, really. It's basically affordable financing.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are looking into reducing dependency on government subsidies, these handouts. They are not sustainable. And that is very much in line with our mandate, what we desire to see at UDC. I did mention we are into supporting industrial development, and it's not for the sake of it. Ultimately, we want to see the country develop economically, but also socially. So we don't focus so much on, profit. We are not profit-driven. We also look at the social component. These investments that UDC is investing in, what do they mean for the everyday person, omuntu wa wansi, if I may say? What do they mean? And that's why we look at knowing that agriculture is one of the key sectors in the economy. UDC has been intentional in investing in agro-industries, well knowing that it's going to provide ready market for the common farmer. I had my sibling again from UDB saying they are supporting these entities that are into export promotion. They want to ensure that such entities maximize the export earnings. Again, that is an area where UDC is very strong in. And some of the entities where UDC has been intentional in supporting are tea factories. You may all be aware that tea is one commodity that traditionally and even in the current today has remained a key commodity exchange.
Yeah.
So UDC has supported about 5 tea factories. We have Mabale in Chenjojo. We have Mpanga Tea Factory in Kabarole. We have Kigezi Highland tea companies in Kabale and Kisoro. We have Kayonza Growers Tea Company in Kanungu. And these are districts where tea growing is very key for the livelihood of the everyday household. So UDC has supported these interventions, and some of the factories, especially in Toro sub-region, that were almost closed, were revived. UDC has been able to revamp them. They are now more efficient, and they are contributing every month. They are contributing to export earnings to the country, besides providing the ready market for the green leaf. I wanted to emphasize again some of the key areas that UDC looks at before we intervene. We have broad categories, agro-industries being one of them, for the obvious reason that I already explained. Then we have infrastructure and services. Then we have mineral value addition. And infrastructure and services may be just to emphasize, because some of the investments where UDC is intervening are quite expensive. They are not the common businesses that you and I can afford to step in and provide, and yet they are very critical. Sometimes the services or the infrastructure is of a public nature, so no private entity is going to be interested in funding such infrastructure. I want to brag about Kalangala Infrastructure Services. If you haven't been to Kalangala, I encourage you to visit Kalangala. Not that I come from there, but because UDC, on behalf of government, and you are part of government, has invested in 2 beautiful ferries, MV Sese and MV Pearl. Very beautiful ferries. If you have a phobia for being on water, if you sit in these 2 ferries, you don't even feel, before you know it, you've arrived, and it's very comfortable, smooth, and yes, so that is UDC. UDC has invested in a 66-kilometer road, again from the landing site on Kalangala, and it has connected Kalangala to the rest of Uganda. Some parts of Uganda, for the lack of a better word, appear like they are different countries. I'm told at one point someone took their family to Kalangala and they thought they had crossed to another country. They're like, oh, are we still in Uganda? So they were disappointed that they were still
I think
in
the word
Uganda.
you're looking for is some parts feel disenfranchised.
Exactly. Yeah, so UDC has connected Kalangala to the rest of Uganda.
Can I just
And-
point out, Dr. Mildred, for the benefit of our viewers who maybe have not had a chance to go to Kalangala yet, I was in Kalangala about a month ago, and it was quite a very remarkable experience in terms of how professional the ferry was, being able to get the car onto the boat and cross over to the other side through the Masaka side. But also in my experience, it's probably the only Maram road in Uganda I have ever driven on that has no potholes. It's amazing what they did with the road, the Maram road in Kalangala. So good job, well done on that one.
Oh, thanks to UDC. Thank you, Ben, for appreciating. And maybe to say a little more on Kalangala Infrastructure Services. We normally brag at UDC that we wear so many hats. We are the Umeme of Kalangala, we are the UNRA of Kalangala, and we are the national water of Kalangala. So UDC has not only invested in the 2 ferries, but also there is a hybrid hydroelectric power and solar plant. that generates and distributes power to the Bugala Island. A role that ordinarily, when we come back to Kampala, is done by the likes of UMEME, the Electricity Regulatory Authority. So UDC is playing that role. Previously, the people in Kalangala were directly fetching water from the lake and consuming it. You and I know this is not clean water. It exposes people to diseases. So UDC comes in and puts up a water treatment plant, not only to treat the water, but also to distribute and ensure that it reaches the homes, the institutions in Kalangala. And because of that, even the hotels that you're now seeing, they wouldn't be there without UDC intervention. You know, that is the spillover effect. If people cannot comfortably cross, then who is going to sleep in the hotels? Mm-hmm. If there is no power, if there is no safe water, who is going to trust their lives to go for a holiday in Kalangala? But right now, it's very comfortable because you are assured of constant supply of power, no load shedding in Kalangala. You experience it in Kampala, but not in Kalangala. Yes.
This is actually very, very true. Just a reminder for those who are just joining us on UBC TV and on NBS, as well as Afro Mobile. This is Spotlight UG. You're with me, Ben Winnie. I'm alongside the beautiful Lauren Masika Kazimoto. We're talking about the government of Uganda funding for development. And I know that Lauren had some questions as well. But before she does, I needed to ask for the three of you to shed some light on why it's very important for the government to concern itself with funding for development. We know that we are in a liberalized economy, and I'll start with this, Samuel, and then we'll come across the room. Why does it become really important for government to interest itself in being able to do funding for development? I think Dr. Mildred has pointed out Kalangala, for example, and what they're doing with KIS there, something that maybe me as a private investor would not have that much interest in because I'm thinking it might not bring back my money as quickly as it should. How critical does it become for government to say there are certain things that we've got to invest ourselves in for the purpose of development? I know that, you know, for MSC and UDB and UDC, there will be a profit component, but that really isn't the biggest driver for what you do, is it?
Like you've rightly mentioned, profitability is not the main motivation for government to intervene in certain areas. However, if we consider all the factors of production, one of those is chiefly capital. And capital comes in two forms. It's either in equity or in debt. Now, equity is what UDC does. We double in equity a bit to a maximum of maybe 25%, whereas they can go significantly higher in terms of amount and shareholding. Now, debt becomes the next, enabler of growth and to help achieve socioeconomic development. So government's role is to come in and provide cheap, patient capital in the form of debt through UDB. So we handpick or we select these projects based on the priority sectors, those that have been developed, those that have been assessed through a process of national planning. We align with NDP, the National Development Plan, which is currently in its third iteration, going into its fourth. And they identified key areas which need access to cheap, affordable capital to play a accelerated and transformational role to help government achieve that objective. So come in UDB, come in microfinance support. UDB provide loans, provide business development and project preparation, business advisory, those kind of services that will help kind of accelerate or jumpstart businesses that require that, that boost. So how do we come in? We do have very affordable credit between 10 and 12% that we are able to apply, whether it's short-term loans, anything up to about 5 years, whether it's facilitating trade finance for entities that are investing in our priority sectors, whether it is asset finance for those that need equipment, kit, that will help them play a more important role in our journey for social economic transformation. So we do that, we come into that space to fill that gap, providing something that's affordable, something that's of a significant enough tenor, up to about 15 years. We accommodate grace periods. We, on top of all that, provide the non-financial end, where we can't do equity on a much longer term. On the non-financial side, we have a project preparation unit, for example. Some of the things they have done, some of the notable things they have done is working on projects like the electricity access project, where the bank has committed about 148 billion to connect 550,000 households to enable them access electricity. So we have that project preparation unit that works on such projects. That also helps the lay individual develop something that's bankable, something that will enable them realize their dream and help government in its role of providing an inclusive and transformational business environment to help Ugandans improve their livelihoods. So on top of that, enterprise development services, we have a business accelerator for successful entrepreneurship that we have launched, and with time they've had a couple of cohorts that are going through that process, the early stage, and now going into the acceleration phase. We have them looking at value chains and the role they can play in empowering business and owners and different sectors, not only SME, but youth and women, with the tools that they need to access credit, either with us or with the other players, like in the microfinance space, in the SACCO space, or even in the commercial banking space, to enable them, have that level of empowerment and to access finance.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that question. And I want to use this opportunity to throw some light on the role of government. Government remains with a role or a mandate of guiding and facilitating development. That role remains with government, and I wanted to make it very clear, because we have had people come to Microfinance Support Center and saying it is not sustainable for government to just give handouts to the myogas, for example. These are handouts, and there's a difference between a handout and a seed capital. Seed capital is not uncommon for even businesses that are starting, the bigger businesses, what you would call the corporate businesses. When a business is starting, it is hard times, usually not easy to get capital to begin a business, as you know, for three reasons. One, you have no history, so you cannot approach a commercial bank or UDB or anyone to give you credit to start your business, unless you have mobilized your own savings, which is usually also very hard. And when you go financial, you also talk of a mix of your savings and what you have borrowed. So it is usually very hard. Then two, you have no credit history. You have no track record that a financier can verify and say, James has been operating this way and therefore he's credit worthy, I can lend them. And then the third, there is no measure of success for a startup that is going to start. So usually what happens for small businesses, they approach either their relatives or friends for some monies to invest in their businesses as initial capital to capitalize their businesses. If they are in other countries and in other regions, or depending on the caliber of person that is starting, you can go angel investor or some other private investors who can stake their equity into the business so that you can start. Then when you have started, that is when now you approach big financiers, venture capitalists or big bankers to finance your businesses. So seed is not uncommon, and that is what government has done for the myogas, for example, to give them seed to catalyze the businesses to start. So I thought I would make that very clear. And why government usually intervenes I will speak to the microfinance methodologies that we use. I think we shared shortly before we came to this studio. For us, we are dealing with rural poor, the poor people. That is our focus as the Microfinance Support Center. Just pick a typical poor person in a remote area like Karenga. This is in Karamoja sub-region. Pick that person, and instead of government now exchanging the investment for equity, government's interest is to see that the livelihoods of the poor have improved. And I think that is the goal of our national development plan, that you have the incomes of the households have increased and their livelihoods have also improved. So that is the stake for government for investing in its population. They want to see people becoming poor, participating in economic development, and having incomes to better their lives. So what we do at the Microfinance Support Center, of course facilitated by government, is picking those individuals, poor individuals, and we mobilize them into groups. When we mobilize the individuals into groups, two things will happen. There's going to be financial intermediation, there's going to be social intermediation. Now, when I speak to the social intermediation part, because when people come together, they have an objective to pool money and better themselves through economic enterprises. But let me speak to the social intermediation part. The social intermediation means that the individuals that have joined together into groups are going to start interacting and relating. And for our groups who are poor, what makes them thrive and survive is the trust that exists between them. That is trust-based networks that they create within the groups. Now, when that social intermediation happens, you create a social capital, which is an important resource that compensates for their lack of material assets, which then serve as collateral for borrowing. So that is why government facilitates and guides development through institutions like the Microfinance Support Center. So therefore, what happens now, you have created clusters of credit-worthy individuals who can now approach the Microfinance Support Center for affordable credit to invest in their economic activities and earn money to improve their households. For example, now, at the Microfinance Support Center, I was telling people recently, when the schools opened, for the Emyoga beneficiaries, we did not see any problem with school fees. Because now you have a social capital, you have got strong networks that are helping the communities to thrive. They are now able to pay school fees. They are now able to access medical services because of the government intervention. If the government had not intervened, we have now 607,000 individuals that have borrowed from their associations. You can imagine. This is just 2 years since the Myoga program started. You have over 607,000 individuals that have borrowed from their groups. So this is why government, to answer your question, sometimes find it easier finds the need to intervene for development. Yes.
All right, now, James, before we go to Dr. Mildred, now, USC, as a government-owned entity, many Ugandans may actually think that you're giving out free money. Could you clarify on that and speak on that as well?
And that is what I explained, actually. And I used the program of Emyoga because this is our new baby that came as a special project from government to support selected enterprises and special categories of people. Maybe I can explain the rationale for the Emyoga program specifically.
Yes, please.
But for the other mainstream programs that we are running, it is microfinance, like I've explained. We have to provide financial services that are affordable to communities, to run enterprises, and better their lives. But specifically to the Emyoga project, this started as a presidential initiative in 2019. Why? Because the president made a countrywide tour to assess the other wealth creation programs that had been introduced by government to see the extent to which they are supporting Ugandans. The finding was interesting because he found out that about 68% of Uganda's population, households, were still outside the money economy. They were doing subsistence farming. So the president then, in his wisdom, said to move these people, to transition them from the subsistence economy to the money economy and market-oriented production, he proposed, he himself, the presidential initiative, he proposed a program that would target special categories of people. So we have 18 categories that were targeted. If you allow, I could mention the categories. We have the border-borders, we have the taxi operators, we have the market vendors, we have fishermen, we have local elected leaders, we have the market vendors, we have tailors, we have mechanics, we have PWDs, we have youth leaders, and others. So those were considered the special categories that were operating outside the financial system, outside the money economy. And then the program came with cabinet passed the project, and then Ministry of Finance designated the Microfinance Support Center because over the years I think we have demonstrated the potential for being the leaders of providing affordable services in this country, and with the structures to manage government funds and channel the same funds to the economically active poor. So the Ministry of Finance, where microfinance falls, designated us to be the managers of this important project. And so the project came with 4 objectives. The first one, the obvious one, is transformation of 68% of Uganda's households into the money economy and market-oriented production. But the second one, which is very important, was to encourage savings. Remember, I talked of savings in 1993. It is following us up to now. Why? Because it is very important for investment. And then the third was to sharpen the entrepreneurial capacity of the beneficiaries of this important program. Why? Because we want the participants of this program to be able to come up with products that are acceptable both locally, regionally, and in other markets. When that happens, you are speaking to the government's agenda of import substitution, that we can produce things here that can be sold offshore. You've heard the president talking of, can we have carpenters producing carpentry products that can be sold instead of importing from China? If that happens, it means you are able to export, and then you balance your current account. Yeah. So this is why this EMYOGA program becomes very, very important. And so far, as of March, actually, we have invested up to 285.63 billion into the population. And what I want to emphasize is that this is not money that is invested to come back to the MSC. We seed it to the EMYOGA circles that are constituency-based, and it is a revolving fund at that level and does not return to the Microfinance Support Center. So that's what I wanted to make very clear.
I'm sure would want to know actually if you do some sort of monitoring after a bit of time to find out how those particular circles that are receiving that money are doing with it, make sure it hasn't been eaten by members of the circle. But you get to answer that a little bit later on. Yes. I want us to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll hear a bit from Dr. Mildred and why it's very important for government to be funding development and some of the projects that UDC is funding and how critical they are. If you're joining us, you're live on UBC TV and NBS. Ben and Laureen here with you. We'd like you to get in touch. Our hashtag SpotlightUG. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. We'll be more than glad to pass them on to our panel and make sure that they are answered. And we already have a couple of tough questions for our panel, which they are more than capable of dealing with, and we'll put those to them a little bit later on. So if you have any questions or comments or any things that you would like to know about regarding government funding for development, would like to hear those, use the hashtag SpotlightUG, and we'll be able to deal with those. But also, very importantly, for you as a Ugandan, you might have an idea and need funding. What we're hearing so far is that there is money available for you, regardless of whether it is little money or big money. And our 3 panelists today will be telling you how you, as an individual, can be able to get access to this money for whatever great idea or business it is that you have. Spotlight UG will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. So when we come back, you'll bring us back and then come to Dr.
Yeah, Dr.
Mildred.
Mildred.
Plan and how it affects your daily life. Then join us on Monday, March 27th, 2023 at 10 p.m. on UBC for a special edition of Spotlight UG. We shall, among other things, be exploring the successes, opportunities and challenges presented by the NDP3's goal to increase household incomes and improve the quality of life for Ugandans under the theme Building a Brighter Future Together, exploring the third National Development Plan and its impact on the lives of Ugandans. Don't miss this chance to learn about how we all can play a part in our motherland's development. Tune in to Spotlight UG on UBC this Monday, March 27th, 2023 at 10 p.m. to catch the panel discussion live. Join the hashtag online via hashtag SpotlightUG.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president. She is the hope of our community. And as a community leader, I will talk to others about how we must protect her against child marriage and teenage pregnancy because it affects us all. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from pregnancy. Because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sauti 116.
Talk with freedom. Get MTN Freedom voice bundles that don't expire. Dial *100 *21 hash or my MTN app for more bundles. Together, we're unstoppable.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number and you send it to her chap chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next. Tofera, refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone.
This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel.
My Tom, head of credit at Uganda Development Bank. I almost said corporation. See, it's still getting in my head a little bit. The development corporation is represented by Dr. Mildred Varungi, who is head of research there. And then we have James Muhwezi, who is spokesperson, but also partnerships manager for Microfinance Support Center. A reminder for you to join us online by asking any questions that you might have regarding government funding for development for either UDC, UDB or MSC. Those questions can be asked using the hashtag SpotlightUG, and we'll try and make sure that our panel is able to answer any questions you might have regarding how government does its funding for development. Lauren.
All right, now, Dr. Mildred, now from where we left off, we're looking at the importance of government funding for development. Now, what is your view as your personal view and, of course, UDC's perspective about why it is very important for government funding for the development of Uganda?
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Before I give the position of UDC, I want to begin with my personal position.
Go ahead.
Yes. I'll give an example. If, for example, Bain has an agenda to pursue you, he has to invest, right?
True. Very true.
Yeah, he has to invest. Not you, right?
Yes, true.
Exactly. So if government also has an agenda, and actually it has, if you've read our National Development Plan 3, the government agenda is to industrialize. And we have a full program on agro-industrialization. So if you have an agenda, you definitely have to put in money. Don't draw an agenda and expect your neighbor to, to fund it for you.
To put money for you, right?
Yes, you must live up to what you desire to achieve. And I want to say it is very important for government to to fund development projects, because you cannot leave everything in the hands of the private sector. We must admit that much as we have a vibrant private sector, it is still weak. It is still growing. It still needs support. And so we need a hybrid. Government must intervene. Government can work together with the private sector. And that's exactly what UDC is doing. We come in, work with the private sector, we handhold them until that point when they are able to stand on their own. Then UDC exits the intervention, and you leave it to the hands of the private sector. Bottom line is, for as long as the private sector is dealing in strategic areas, strategic in the sense that they are going to help the country solve some of the challenges that we've grappled with for quite some time, joblessness being one of them. In Uganda, you and I, we know we have siblings, we have very many relatives who are well-schooled but are not able to attain jobs. Where are these jobs going to come from? We need to create more industries. Industries of big capacity to accommodate different actors, either as direct factory workers or indirectly because they supply, maybe they are into at the production stage, and so they are able to supply the raw materials to the factories. So government has the responsibility. I don't want to just call it a mandate. It is a responsibility. It is the duty of the government to ensure that no one is poor, no one is jobless. It creates a desperate situation. So it is important that government intervenes, because the private sector remains weak and cannot carry the entire mantle on its own. But I also wanted to emphasize that it is not uncommon for government to intervene. Even in other countries, we've seen government intervene. If we borrow from South Africa, for example, we have, if I may call them a sister agency, there is Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa. This is a very old institution that has been supported heavily by government, and it has really led to a lot of industrial development in their country. Why? Government Putin was intentional in ensuring that it is well capitalized. And so in the same spirit, government has to be intentional in ensuring that institutions like UDC that have been given the mandate to drive industrial development are well capitalized. In that way, we shall be able to deal with those challenges. The other reason why government should intervene, and it is already doing some work, so we need to give government some credit. Already some work has been done, but more still needs to be done. It's in the area of agro-industrialization, like I said. UDC has set up or revamped a number of agro-industries. And these are very critical because we face a challenge of post-harvest losses. You know, you as a farmer, after investing your hard labor, sometimes even borrowed money from UDB, and UDB is not very kind on you, you know, you find you cannot add value, you cannot export, and it all goes to loss. So that is space in which government has to come in and ensure that farmers get value for their sweat. And that's why you'll see a factory like Soroti Fruit Factory. Instead of farmers selling their fruits at giveaway price along the roadside, you know, you sit there with the fruit, the sun is scorching you, it's just not comfortable at all. Have an arrangement with a fruit factory, let it off-take, and we shall have avoided the post-harvest losses. So, and who is going to do that? Government has to do it. So government has the responsibility. We cannot run away from it. Then also maybe to emphasize, it's been a song, we want to see transformation from peasantry to commercial. We want to integrate all Ugandans into the commercial sector. If I believe you and I are very close followers of the SDGs, we subscribe to the principle of leaving no one behind. How are we not going to leave the farmers behind if they are not supported? If they are not supported to find red market, if they are not supported to get the right value for their produce, how are we going not to leave them behind? So government has to be very intentional in investing in those sectors where the private sector has no interest, like Ben, you rightly pointed out, because either the returns are too slow, government can be patient. Yeah, so the returns are too slow, and yet it is a strategic investment.
And of national importance as well.
Exactly.
Now, of course, when we talk about the three of you, UDB and UDC and MSC, the most important thing here is that, and I think it's been mentioned by all three of you, access to affordable capital or credit, if you want to call it that. A lot of people who are watching the show tonight are usually thinking, government things, why bother at all, right? And yet, from the discussions we've been having before we started the show, even in the last few days in the build-up to this particular session of Spotlight UG, what I have been learning, what Lauren and I have been learning, is that anybody, literally anybody, can be able to actually access money from the Microfinance Support Center or from UDC or from UDB if their things are in order. And this is from, as James said, a border guy, all the way through to a person who is setting up a factory, to a person who's got a big business that wants to get funding from UDB. So starting with you, Samuel, and then we'll come to Dr. Mildred, and finally, I think probably the most popular person on the show tonight will be James, because he speaks to the majority of the Ugandans at our level, what does it take if I need to be able to get money from any of your three organizations? We'll start with UDB and then UDC, and finally with Microfinance Support Center. If someone wants to be able to access money from you, one, is it possible? Is it just a thing that you guys are saying for the sake of TV? Is it actually possible for a Ugandan watching the show tonight to be able to come to any of your organizations and get money for their business? What does it take for them to be able to do that?
Thank you very much, Ben. From UDB's perspective, any registered entity, business, or even single-member company can access funding from UDB, provided, one, we have a mandate alignment. So are you borrowing in one of the priority sectors that I highlighted? Is it in the agri space? Is it in agri processing? Is it for manufacturing or industry? Is it in tourism, human capital development, or does it align with what the bank is trying to achieve? That should be the first checkpoint. Then the second is substantiating the need. What is the need at that point in time? Is it a loan? Is it equity? Or is it business advisory or project preparation services? If it is in any of those spaces, again, aligned to the priority sectors, we are happy to look at that credit or that particular request. So the key things which we do look out for with most projects is financial viability. Are they viable? Are they feasible? So have you done the groundwork? Have you done the homework? It is not copy paste. Have you got what it takes to take you, to the next level?
What if it's copy and paste, but I'm going to do something better than what people are already doing in the market, and I know that I can crack it?
As long as you're able to kind of demonstrate that feasibility, as long as you're able to demonstrate that it is a sustainable project and it will give us the outcome, you, not only yourself, but give us the outcome that we want in terms of solving a problem around the employment, whether it's going to generate tax, whether it does a level of value addition or output addition, foreign exchange earning or foreign exchange saving, then that project can be looked at, because ideally, yes, there is competition, so there'll be a lot of copy and paste, but what makes yours unique? Where does the bank come in to enhance that proposition and make it something that you can easily realize and help all parties achieve their ambition? So again, depending on the category you are, we cater to pretty much almost everyone, slightly above what microfinance support does. We have a proposition for SME, I think SME Kazi loans under our special programs proposition. We also have something for women in business. This is just to provide them, with appropriate financial services or cheap financing for women-owned, women-led enterprises, so that they can also participate in the development agenda. So that is the SMEs, women and youth, who we can empower through, the product offering that we have. I'd mentioned that sometimes your application might not be up to scratch, and that's where we get into the business advisory space. So our business accelerator for sustainable entrepreneurship will do some business development. They will take you through a program where they help you refine, your idea. Examine your existing business. What do you need to formalize, to kind of come out from the unbankable space into the bankable space? What tools do you need? What support do you need? So we will see a lot of projects that need polishing up. We also have a project preparation unit for a project slightly above, the startup or early phase stage in the business process. So project preparation will come in. They will help with the feasibility, pre-feasibility for some of those undertakings and see them through to when they are bankable, either by ourselves or by another entity. The other thing that's critical is, what do you bring to this? What do you bring in your application? You should have something, somewhere that you've started, your equity contribution. Now, this ranges depending on the type of project, from startup or medium term, anything from 20, 40, 60% of your own contribution. So credit, I think.
So UDB is not going to give me 100% of what I'm looking for the project.
It is highly unlikely, unless your project, is one of those that ticks so many boxes.
It's going to take us to middle income as a country on its own, right?
Yeah.
Is there a minimum amount of time that my entity must have existed for before I can be able to try and get funding from UDB? Does my company have to have existed for a certain period of time, for example?
Yes. So, like I mentioned, we also do deal with startups, startup businesses. So that is really sort of post-ideation and when you're starting to implement things. However, for those that have been in operations, we look at a minimum of 2 years financials, and based on that assessment, we are able to then kind of take a view, a more informed view on whether the business is, will be bankable, depending on the additionality that the credit is going to bring to the business. But I think the key thing to note really is credit is an enabler. You shouldn't be looking at credit as what is going to start you off the ground. Credit is only an enabler. It comes in to grease the wheels. It comes in to make things either move more efficiently. If it is an overdraft, you're covering a gap in an existing transaction. If it is asset finance, you are bringing in piece of equipment that is going to increase your output, your productivity, your efficiency. So, it is critical that you think about it that way. Credit is more of an enabler than, it's going to fund your project from its beginnings all the way to the end.
All right, Dr. Mildred, what does UDC look for when funding?
Lorraine, I like relating to my siblings all the time.
Yes.
So, different from my sibling UDB, while they focus on debt, we do more of equity. I want to emphasize that.
Okay.
But to a very small extent, UDC also does debt financing, but only with companies where UDC has already invested and has a stake. And so UDC can give you a shareholder loan, but that is to a very small extent. And why? Because we know sometimes some businesses actually may not be very beautiful now, but they are of strategic nature in future. And sometimes they are heavily burdened with previous debts. And so borrowing again is not going to be a solution for them. It's not going to help them get up their feet and become operational and in a profitable manner. So sometimes equity is the way to go as opposed to debt. Debt is an option, but sometimes equity is the most preferred option. So who qualifies for UDC support and how do they access it? Sole proprietors, business entities that have been established by individuals are eligible. Businesses that have been established in partnership with others, so partnerships are also eligible. And even government entities are eligible already. UDC is supposed to be in there to protect government interest. However, those businesses must align to our investment principles. They must align with a broad government agenda. Like I said right now, the agenda is to pursue industrialization. And we have a whole program on agro-industries. There are priority sectors in there. We know there are priority commodities like cotton, coffee. So if you bring your proposal, we do a pre-appraisal analysis. That's the first point. So the way we generate our business at UDC, 3 ways. One way, it could be a walk-in promoter. You come with your business proposal. It could be an internally generated business idea based on research evidence that we have generated. It can also be a response to a presidential pledge. You can call it a presidential directive if you like. It depends, but it's a response to some of the pledges. But bottom line, it doesn't matter the source. We have to do a pre-appraisal. And in this pre-appraisal, we first focus on our investment principles and that alignment that I've talked about. Is it falling in the broad category of agro-industrialization, infrastructure and services, mineral value addition? If it does tick, it passes that one. We proceed. Is it within the priority commodities? Because there is a reason why government prioritizes certain commodities and not all. So we respect that, the effort that went into prioritizing. If it is a priority commodity, again, we tick. Then we look at our core investment principles. I've hinted on this before. One of them is job creation. This business proposal you're bringing on board, is it going to translate into creation of jobs so that we can deal with unemployment, at least reduce it significantly? If the box is ticked, we proceed. Does it lead to utilization of locally available raw materials? For example, farmers' produce. For example, a natural resource like limestone in Karamoja sub-region. Like, we have Oh, sorry, the name has has come out, but just imagine any mineral, natural mineral, whatever it is. So is this intervention you're bringing on board likely to promote value addition? We've all, it's a song now, when we don't add value and we export raw materials, we are exporting jobs, because had you done the value addition home, you would have created opportunities for the locals. So we look at that. We look at, we are concerned as a country, our balance of trade position is not that beautiful. We do import much more than we export. We don't want to remain in such a situation where we have the advantage to promote exports. We want to do it. So we shall assess the idea. Does it promote export? Does it minimize importation of what we can locally produce at low cost? We assess that. We look at matters of regional balance. Like I did indicate, no region or sub-region in Uganda should be left behind. You know, they used to say we leave the Karamojongs, they will find us along the way.
Yes.
No, that's not the spirit. We don't want any region to be left behind. So if you come with your proposal, we assess. Is it falling in that region that currently is less privileged? It's not so reached. And that's why I mentioned of UDC creating, linking Kalangala to the rest of Uganda, that kind of spirit of leaving no one behind. So if we see such values in the kind of investment proposal, then we begin to tick the boxes. There is another one, promoting entrepreneurship. Do we see whatever you're proposing, is it going to advance technology in manufacturing? Is it likely to lead to spillover effects, positive ones? Shall we see new businesses emerging simply because UDC has set up or partnered with a private investor to set up an industry in a given area? If we tick all those boxes, that is pre-appraisal, then we proceed to now the actual appraisal process to appraise the project. And for us to appraise, we don't just look at it and we say, this one is good, let's go ahead and invest. No, because UDC is investing government money, we have to be very careful and be very sure money is going to an investment that makes the highest sense, not only in financial terms, but also economically, taking the entire society into perspective. So we conduct a number of studies, feasibility being one of them. If it's a new project, I should have said that UDC does not invest in only ongoing projects. It can be a startup. So if it's a startup, we shall do a feasibility. And of course, like you and I already know, it has those broad components of financially. Is it, does it make financial sense for UDC to put in money? Yeah. Economically, does it make sense? Technologically, which technology is being proposed? Will it add value? Will it create efficiency? You know, will it import some expertise, and we see some knowledge and technological transfer happening right here in Uganda? So we do the feasibility studies. If it was, if it's a business that is already ongoing, we do studies like due diligence, for example. We want to confirm the legal status, for example, of those entities. We don't want to be taken for a ride. So we have to confirm that this business indeed exists. It has been running for this period of time. It's indebted to this level, so that when we come in, we really understand. So we do business valuation studies, a number of studies, such that whatever decision we arrive at, it is based on research evidence. And that evidence is partly used to structure the investment. Yeah. Because like I said, UDC is coming in to partner, for example, with a private entity. Implying originally, if you're owning your business 100%, now you're going to dilute your shares to accommodate government in the name of UDC. So we need information that is going to tell us if UDC puts in this amount of money, it translates to this % shareholding. So that's the kind of work we do at UDC. So whatever investment decisions are made, they are based on good evidence. You know, there has been this saying that, oh, government doesn't use evidence, doesn't value evidence. Maybe the other government, not UDC. At UDC, evidence is valued.
Yeah. So we're doing some polls online in terms of what people think about funding for development in Uganda. And again, if you have any questions, please do bring those through. We'll be going through them in just a little bit, and we do have some questions for the three of you. We asked people, what do you think is the biggest priority for government funding in Uganda at the moment? And it's a very even split between healthcare, infrastructure, agriculture, and education, interestingly, lagging slightly behind in terms of what people think the government should be investing in. The unfortunate thing, again, which is why we're having this discussion, is about public perception of government funding for development. We asked, how satisfied are you with the current level of funding for development in Uganda? And more than 77% of the respondents on our Twitter poll are not happy with how much money government is putting into funding for development. So I guess the three of you will get a chance to respond to that. Do you feel you should be getting a bit more money in terms of what you're getting for the different programs that you have? I know that Samuel talked about the fact that your funding has been bumped up a little bit. So are you happy with that at the moment? Does that cater to this, or do we need to increase that a little bit? We also asked about whether the government should increase funding for development, even if it means increasing taxes or cutting expenditure elsewhere. So interesting question there. The majority, just slight majority of people there actually thinking the government should be increasing funding for development, 44%, and then 43% saying no. I'm guessing that's because there was a component of increasing taxes, so people may be not too happy about that particular one. But then also the issue about transparency and accountability in terms of managing the development funds, and this is now where your different organizations coming in terms of how you're doing with that. So that's some of the feedback that we are getting online at the moment. Please keep them coming. Any questions you might have for UDB, UDC, or MSC, don't forget to tag us at Ben Wine, at Laura Tasha for Lauren. You can tag us so we can be able to pick up the questions very easily, and we'll be asking those. So, James, before Lauren comes in to ask a little bit about some of the highlights and the successes that you have with the different programs, a lot of the people watching will identify with you very well, because Samuel and Dr. Mildred are for the big boys, the ones who want very, very big money. But for us, Abantu 1C, who probably are most likely going to be able to interface more with Microfinance Support Center, how does someone who's watching the show tonight begin to think about accessing this money from MSC? Because from what we've heard you say, the money is available, the money is there, it can be accessed, it can make a difference in someone's life. Question is, how do they get it from you?
Yeah. Thank you very much, and I have to thank the viewers who are sending in their feedback. It is very important feedback, especially when they say there is need for government to increase the funding for development. Indeed, at the Microfinance Support Center, the demand is overwhelming because of the good financial products that we have. They are broad range, they are affordable. The interest rate is the best in the country, 8% per annum. That is under 1% per month, you can imagine. And so
8%
per annum.
Per annum. UDB is at about 8 to 12, I think? 10 to 12.
Yes.
So you're at 8%
per annum.
And I'm sure you are aware that a lot of, especially at, as you call them, rural poor, are being exploited, because we have people who are charging them up to 25% per month.
Yes.
Not per annum, but per month.
Yes.
And you're saying that there's money available at 8%
per annum.
Per annum.
Yes.
Through MSC.
Through MSC.
Right.
And I have to thank you for the poll. I did not know you are doing the poll, because it gives us a sense of direction going forward. But I want to pick it from where you said if all things are in order, somebody can access credit. And that is where the unique mandate of MSC comes in. For us, we do not wait for if things are in order. Our mandate is to put things in order for somebody to be able to access affordable financial services. That is the other mandate, the business development services mandate that we do. And so we are mandated, and it is a country mandate, by the way. So every Ugandan that is out there that is watching, you are eligible to the services of the Microfinance Support Center. The active poor Ugandan, the working poor, is eligible to access our services. But who do we target? We target the microfinance institutions. We target cooperatives. And I want to make a distinction. Most people tend to confuse the cooperatives. SACCOs are the financial services cooperatives, but they are also cooperatives. So we target all cooperatives. And then we target village self-help groups. Self-help groups. Those are very many groupings of people that we also target. And then SMEs. Those are the categories that we target. Microfinance Support Center, I want to also emphasize, is not for profit. We do not seek profit in our dealings. We have got a very strong development social mandate, and so we go where no one wants to go. We are present across the country, and if you are watching or listening anywhere in the country, you should be able to access our services. But some people may say, you are based in Kampala. We have got branches across the country. We have Kabale in most towns and cities. Kabale, we have Ntungamo, Mbarara, Fort Portal, Kasese, Hoima, Lira, Arua, Mbale, Iganga, Nakaseke, Ruwero, Kampala, Jinja. I mentioned Mbale, Soroti, and Masaka. So we have branches across the country, and any one of the branches I have mentioned, if you are close to that branch, our people should be able to serve you. But because the branches, like I said, are about 15 in the country, Microfinance Support Center is innovating every day, and we have come up with, we have got now a functional financial extension support infrastructure across the country. And it is interesting, this infrastructure is comprised of our own clients, the clients that we have groomed over time, and they have understood the mandate and the spirit of MSC, so they are able to recruit and refer clients to the Microfinance Support Center's main head office or the branches. Those are the reference institutions that we have, or the reference institutions that we have. So these institutions are able to recruit, they are able to provide advisory service, technical assistance for anyone that would want to consume our services. And there are 133 across the country. In addition to the institutions, we have community-based agents. These have been thoroughly trained, and they are supporting our institutions out there. They are able to also train and also refer clients for further support. So these are the types of clients that we provide our services to. So for us, we do not wait for when they are ready. We, through our business development services arm, we make sure that we prepare the ground for financing. If a client is a startup and maybe they have no track record, like I mentioned before, so we deploy our business development services products and packages to be able to lift them up to a level where we can then finance them. Yeah. And so I will speak to the requirements of these four categories. If you are a village savings and loan association member, or if you are a village savings and loan association or a self-help group, how do you access our services? You see, for microfinance to make sense, they have to be provided at the most affordable terms, but at the same time, the provider has to do so at the sustainable level. So we have made our requirements so easy for our clients, whom we understand very well, to be able to not to hassle putting the requirements together. So if you are a self-help group, first of all, you have to register the group, and registration for the group is through the Community Development Office at the district level, or at the sub-county level. So you can imagine this is easy for everyone to access. And by the way, all districts, local governments in the country are our primary partners. So they understand that they need to help our clients, who are also their clients, to be able to access some of these services. So they are aware in the divisions in the city, in the sub-counties across the countryside, everyone is aware that they will give you that service. Microfinance Support Center has come up with templates for the constitutions that are required for self-help groups to be able to register. So these templates will be availed, and they are available at the district local governments. The community development officers will advise them how to fill them. They are easy, and then this is a key requirement for registration, and you get your registration certificate. That is what is important for a group to access our services.
Right.
Yeah.
So once the group has done their registration, basically puts them in line to be able to come and access.
Puts them in line. You have to have leadership. The leadership structure is again defined within the Constitution, but beyond that, our officers out there, even the community development officer, will train them on how to put the leadership structure in place. And then maybe one more requirement is a power of attorney, because you see the group is comprised of 30 people or 25 or something. So they need to authorize the leaders to transact on their behalf.
Right.
So that is the power of attorney that is registered. But even the registration, MSC supports them to achieve that.
If the leader decides to be shady and play with money, it's their responsibility to deal with them because they've given him powers of attorney. Yeah,
power of attorney, but they do not give, the beauty is that they do not give one individual the power of attorney. They give 3 individuals power of attorney. So one cannot sign in the absence of the other.
So they have to co-sign.
Yeah, they have to co-sign. So it is a foolproof methodology, and that is how the groups are accessing our services.
And the good thing about the numbers is that it's very difficult for you to play around with people's money when there's more than 20 people involved. It becomes very
difficult. Huh?
Everyone has an eye on everyone, so it is fine. So if it is a cooperative, again at the district level, we have got commercial officers that are helping us to prepare and register, submit for registration to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, to the Registrar of Cooperative Societies for registration. The requirement there is the bylaws. So the copies of bylaws are available at the ministry. If one finds it so hard to access them, we collect them from the ministry and dispatch them to the nearest points where they can access them.
Right.
And the 4 copies of the bylaws cost 50,000. That is a known cost, and individuals contribute to that, and they are able to access. Once the registration certificate is there, we just have one requirement, that they complete the probationary period, which is 2 years. But within that probationary period, MSC is doing the training and capacity building. Because cooperatives are now high level. They need structures to operate. They need leadership. They need committees. They need AGMs. They need management staff. So much comes. They need policies to operate. So we train them within those 2 years, and we make them so strong for them to use the credit.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I personally like a success story, a very good success story at that.
Yes.
And I know that other Ugandans also watching tonight do also enjoy a very good success story. Kindly tell us, what are some of your key highlights or success stories where you feel as MSC, UDC, and UDB, where you feel that you've been able to fulfill your mandate?
Okay. Maybe before I answer that question, I need to make also a differentiation between my colleagues here.
Your siblings.
She's calling us siblings, but I think I am your colleagues in the sense that microfinance prepares ground for UDB to finance.
Right.
Okay.
We play in the microfinance field, and so when we win over the clients, we have had most of the clients asking us, now, if you support us and we reach a level where microfinance does not apply, where do we go? So I want to use this opportunity to say that you have got the UDB where you can go for the bigger clients that don't play in the microfinance
when they've outgrown you.
When they have outgrown us,
you hand them over to Samuel.
We hand them over to Samuel.
And when they outgrow him, he hands them over to Dr. Mildred.
To the
right?
UDB. But except that most of them, because of the good services they access from us, they would want to stay with us. But when that level comes, UDB can then take them over. So we are microfinance, and the unique mandate is that we provide the business development services. And then to my colleague from the UDC, there's a strong linkage. The clients that we support, be it the SMEs, be it the cooperatives, I think they play a critical distribution chain role because if I support an SME with credit, or maybe a cooperative, say, to engage in production, what they have produced might be taken by the UDC for value addition and then processing, say the fruits. Because I know the people we are supporting in Soroti that are into fruit growing. So that is where the linkage now is. To distribute their products to the factories that UDC has established. So I think we need to speak more with each other so that I create market for the clients that I'm supporting. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So as Lauren was saying, so let's talk a little bit about the things that you feel you've been able to do that have made a difference.
Let's start
with we'll start with Dr. Mildred.
Okay.
So you can catch your breath, and then we'll come to Samuel, and then come back to you, James. And then we have some questions for you that are coming through online. We'll put those to you before we wrap up. So starting with you, Dr. Mildred, if you had to pick up some of maybe one or two key things that you think, this is something we can brag about, we've done well, this has helped us, sort of give us motivation to keep doing what we do.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. UDC has a number of success stories, but like you've said, in the interest of time, we should keep it a bit short. One, we can really brag, and it's not for the sake of bragging. We have our presence in most of the sub-regions in the country. We have invested in the Acholi sub-region, Kigezi sub-region, in the central region. We are investing in Karamoja, so we are creating regional balance in terms of development, and for that we are proud. Like I indicated in the start, there is a lot of joblessness in Uganda, but UDC is making a great contribution. Directly, we estimate that our portfolio of about 14 investments that are commercially operational, not forgetting we have so many pipelines that are still in initial stages. We have created at least 2,800 direct jobs. And it is estimated that indirectly we have created over 1 million. And that is along the value chains in the different sectors where we are intervening, in tea, in cotton, in the fruit subsector. I also like bragging about one company of ours, Bukona Agro-Processors. It's located in Nwoya. Remember, Acholi sub-region is one of the regions that experienced a lot of the destruction because of the Konyi War. So this is a project that has brought hope in the region. It's one of the projects that processes cassava into ethanol. It's a cooking ethanol, and it's exported to Kenya. This is a very big jump. We've not been exporting Kenya. So we are venturing into that new space, and cassava does so well in the region. So farmers are growing, and they are not worried about market. Because the other thing that normally disturbs farmers is, if I grow, am I able to sell what I have produced? That's not a worry anymore for cassava. I want to emphasize again our contribution as UDC to export earnings. This is something that we haven't quantified as yet, but at least we know our companies that are into export, the tea companies, the Bukona that is exporting the ethanol, they are contributing every quarter in terms of billions to the export earnings. And also to bring it back to the Omuntu wa wansi who is supplying the raw materials, because these companies are buying the green leaf from farmers, they are buying the raw cassava, they are buying the cotton, they are buying the fruits that would otherwise go to waste. And the factories are paying on time for these raw materials, and that money is plowed back into the economy. Just in a particular January to March quarter this year, one company, Kayonza Growers Tea Company, reports that they paid over 1 billion for green leaf, and that's money that goes back into the community to make lives better. You know, we are always singing the song of improving farmers' incomes, our per capita income. I don't like the fact that at one time we had to debate, have we crossed to middle income, have we not? You know, UDC is making that contribution to better the household incomes, and there is evidence that speaks to that. And in future, we are going to actually do proper evaluation of our businesses, and we shall invite you and share our success stories that are equipped with all the evidence that speaks to us. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I mean, if we were having this chat before we came on air about how in a place like Vietnam, you don't have to have a debate about whether you've reached middle income or not. It's a bit obvious from the people in the country that you know you have arrived. So yeah, Samuel, what are some of the things that you think you've been able to do well as UDB that we can chest thump about?
You've given me a bit of a problem. I had a few hundred pages, but anyway, I'll just highlight a few. So, in terms of the key measure, the development impact that the bank has had on the country, from the facilities, for example, we approved in 2020, we have seen about potentially 35,000 jobs created, direct impact. We've seen or project an output value of about 9.3 trillion shillings. In terms of additional output value. Tax revenue, we project about 393 billion that will be collected from the projects we financed, and about 1.5 trillion in terms of foreign exchange. And the other things we might want to highlight are, I think we've been prudent in managing the funds allocated to us. We are thankful for the tremendous support we've had from government in terms of capitalization. Other things we've done well in terms of financial reporting awards. We've earned those consecutively as a bank. We have also launched out in the digital space, digital outreach space. We've had a partnership with Nsubuko, which we launched a couple of weeks ago, that is going to enable kind of mobile lending and mobile support services to bring in more people into the fold. That is, sort of supporting the mandate that microfinance support has. We've also introduced local contractors financing initiative. We've had a challenge, when you look around, do we have the local players in the infrastructure support space, given the, kind of contracts and projects that are coming on board, who is supporting the locals. So we are proud of that local contractors finance initiative. We've also partnered with NASIRI, that is the National Semi-Arid Resources Research Facility in Serere. We've given them about 178 million to enable them commercialize improved seed varieties. This goes to, again, supporting our mandate around increasing output, being self-sustaining as a country, and that is something we are proud of. We're also working promoting science, technology, and innovation. We've partnered with the Secretariat for Science and Technology in the Office of the President, and we are going to look at what we can do for supporting incubation, commercialization, kind of the building blocks. How do we build the bottom of the pyramid to have not only more people come into the fold, so that's on the financial inclusion space, but how do we also empower that, those people, so that no one is left behind, to have a really sustainable and inclusive growth model, potential growth model. The other I spoke to was around the electricity connections program that we've run, that you'd see about, for the next 5 years. We've put about 148 billion into that. to reduce the cost of connection to electricity, because electricity is a really critical part. It's part of the critical path to development.
Yeah.
If we are to, get more people connected, we hope to have about 550,000 households. So those are a few things that can maybe highlight that we've done as UDB.
No, you need to have a very big chest, quite a bit of thumping that needs to happen for you. James, some big things being thrown around by Dr. Mildred and Samuel, so no pressure on you to celebrate some of your wins at MSC.
Yeah, let me give you a real example of what MSC is doing to uplift the poor from poverty. But having said that, we have got two financing systems at the Microfinance Support Center. We have the conventional financing system, which is interest-based system, and then we have the Islamic financing system, which is interest-free system. Now, under the conventional financing system, I can pick one example of a success story that I am familiar with, which I can share also to the listeners out there, because questions have come saying some of them are not satisfied. But I think it is just lack of information that people out there have benefited, and these are real life examples. We are profiling all success stories, which I think we shall share with you, the media, as our partners, soon to be relaying them to the public to know that people are getting relieved from their financial stresses. We have got a people's circle called Buturo People's Circle in Bushenyi, Ishaka. This circle interfaced with MSC in 2007. They started a few individuals with only 1 million. And 1 year later, they had mobilized 46 people. In 2011, Microfinance Support Center gave a loan after the training had been conducted. We were able to give a loan of 30 million shillings to that circle of 46 people in 2011. Long story short, between 2011 and to date, they have borrowed 11 times, and they are currently servicing a loan of 400 million. They have 12,000 members. They have an total asset base of 10.3 billion, and they have mobilized 3.4 billion shillings. That is Buturo People's Circle. Wow. But one individual who also interested me, who borrowed from Buturo People's Circle with only 50 million, was able to start a banana plantation where he's now cutting 50 bunches a month, and he cuts twice a month. He's also established a dairy farm where he's getting 40 liters of milk per day. And he has constructed a house, he has educated the children. You just need to see that story to believe that real transformation out there is happening. So that is one example that is familiar to me that I could share.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. So from 1 million in 2007
to now 400. Asset base of 10.3 billion.
Oh, wow.
And now servicing a loan of 400 million.
That's
with 12,000 members.
Okay, you managed to keep up with Dr. Mildred and Samuel very well in terms of how big the success story is. And yes, that's the whole point, isn't it? That what you're able to do with the smallest of investments, if people are really organized, they're able to come up to the level where they're able to do things like that. So if you replicate that across the entire country, then all of a sudden we don't have to debate whether we are in middle income or not.
Absolutely.
You sort of find yourselves there.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at some questions for you, and we'll try and give this to you so you can answer them quickly. Coming off of our Twitter handles, of course, at Spotlight UG is the hashtag. That's hashtag Spotlight UG. We've been asking you to ask any questions that you have so we can pass them on to Dr. Mildred and to James as well as Samuel. So for you, James, how come MSC gives loans for only 3 to 4 years maximum? Can that still be described as a development loan? For UDB and UDC, you seem to be asking for security quite a lot, which makes some prospects walk away because it makes it difficult for them to work with you. You might want to respond to that. Someone here is saying that based on their perception, MSC seems to be the one doing the best work. I don't know if it's because of that, how big that success story is or not. But yeah, this is Bonoti Yusuf. He's asking about what we're doing to avail services online. And I think this would be especially for you, James, and for you, Samuel. I guess it's a bit difficult for what UDC does to be done completely online. But I think mostly for you, James, and for Samuel, to be able to submit requirements for assessment online, how easy is this for you guys to do in terms of, I think, the tagging on to e-governance? We also had another question about the public being misguided and misinformed, and the thinking being that there are not very clear procedures on how to access this funding, and the perception seems to be that this money is for a select few. So maybe the three of you can quickly touch on that. How easy is it for anybody to access this money? Because the perception seems to be that this money is strictly for just a few people. And then the other one is about information. How easy is it for people to access information about these things? This is again Yusuf asking. He says, I have a company that does IT services, and he says, I am sure I don't qualify for the PDM fund. What sort of funding could I be able to qualify for in what the three of you are talking about? So if I own an IT company that does some sort of IT services, who of the three of you, I guess definitely not Dr. Mildred, I'm thinking here, between Samuel and James, who would be best placed to be able to provide services for a company in this regard? So far, these are the questions that we've received that I think are standing out. We'll ask our audience to continue asking these questions online. UDC and UDB and MSC are online, and they're able to pick these up and, of course, respond to you directly as well, in case we're not able to do that now because we only have 5 minutes to wrap up the show. But you can do that and use the hashtag SpotlightUG, and then you'll get some questions. Again, the purpose for this show, Lauren, is for us to be able to sort of provoke discussion and for people to then go and sort of continue this and get as much information as they need. So as we wrap up, I think we'll start with Samuel and then go across the room very briefly in terms of the questions that you have had, what you can be able to respond to, and then your parting shots, and then we'll run through to Dr. Mildred as we wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Now, on the issue of security, collateral, I think one of the things we needed to point out is we have to, fund sustainable businesses. There are a number of aspects that we look at, and I don't want us to think about collateral as only land, buildings, or real estate. There are other forms of collateral that are readily acceptable, and again, it depends on the nature of the transaction. So the transaction is really looked at in terms of four main areas. Who are the characters behind the transaction. So that is where we go into the kind of information. What is your background? What is your credit rating like? In the due diligence that we do. So we look at character, we look at your capacity. What is your capacity to repay? How is the money going to be generated to service this facility? We also look at the capital. Remember the equity. What amount of contribution are you? How much skin do you have in the game, so to speak? And then we assess that against the conditions, whether it's the economic conditions, what is the environment like? That is where we look at legal, economic, political, state of technology, and how those aspects affect your project. Now, any weakness in any of those four might lead to a requirement for security. So basically, it's a stool that stands on 5 legs, and depending on how strong the other legs are, we can then decide what kind of collateral or what forms the basis of collateral. Right. Because we have examples where we, with all sorts of solutions coming out these days, with collateral management, you can borrow against the stock that you're going to buy or the stock you already have. Yeah. If you're in the produce or commodities business. Other people, if you have cash, you can borrow against that cash. if you have, assets, existing assets, whether it is plant, machinery, things like that. We have solutions like that. Again, if you're struggling and you want to acquire an asset, plant, machinery, again, for example, we have an asset finance proposition where you only need to raise 20% of the value at a minimum, 20% of the value of that equipment. Deposit that with the bank and it's transmitted to the provider, and the bank will finance the 80%, meeting a security coverage ratio. We have instances where we have even lent against contracts, where we have project finance. If you have a contract or an agreement that promises to, give you, demonstrates basically the cash flow, such transactions can be funded. If it's invoice discounting, again, going back to the other building blocks. What is your character? How have you demonstrated your capacity to perform and service in the past? So such things facilitate the transactions. Like I said, again, credit is only an enabler. You have to be bringing something to the table, and then we can help you in that particular space. In terms of public being misguided or misinformed, I think there is still a bit of a gap which we are trying to bridge. We have been as open, as transparent as possible. If you go onto our website, you'll find all the requirements, and anyone looking at those few requirements will notice that the bulk of them, maybe 6 or 7 of those, are just the basic documents you need to even open a bank account, just to open a bank account in a commercial bank, and those are added into our due diligence. So there is really no mystery around it. It really comes down to who you are, how honest you are, and how we can assess your, ability to service the debt. So that should remove the mystery around the entire process for lending. In terms of just a bit, in terms of ICT, how are we integrating that in the business? We do have the option to apply online. If you go onto our website, udbl.co.ug, there's a little apply now button you can click on, and it will give you the options for the online application, and that can be supported through that channel.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much for our viewers for the questions. The first question was about 3 to 4 years. Is it really development microfinance? But microfinance is about microcredit, it's about microinsurance, it's about micro businesses, it's about transfers.
Micro time.
And we have products. We have products that speak to the needs of the people. We are prototyping. I think you just have to come and see some of the products that we have. Because, for example, if somebody is into agricultural production, the chain, we seek to solve challenges along the chains. If it is production on farm, we see what challenges you have. We address that through our innovative products. If it is at the agro-processing and storage, we also address that until you reach the market with your produce. And then, of course, we wholesale, like I said. We give credit to SACCOs, for example. SACCOs have members, and they give to their members. Or we give credit to the groups, and you can imagine these groups lend to their members for just 1 year. Sometimes 6 months, and people are getting to consume more credit incrementally until they can't even belong to the group. So it is methodologies, it's about the products, how we package them, it's about the need that you have. A product should be able to solve the needs. Whether we do online services, we recognize that MSC, that ICTs are critical. They enhance people's economic livelihoods, and they also increase market efficiency. So what we have done, we have not only looked at MSC digitalizing, we are also facilitating digitalization at our client institution level. Right now, you are able to apply to MSC online. We are able to also monitor your credit performance online. So in terms of information, we have leaflets. You can access our leaflets. We have a website. We have our partners like reference institutions, and also all district local governments have information about our services.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any parting shots from you, Dr. Mildred?
Oh, thank you so much, Ben. One, to clarify that UDC, we don't ask for collateral. Like I indicated, we mostly do equity. And the small component of debt that we have, the shareholder loans, does not require any collateral. Should the partner fail to pay, then we dilute your shareholding. The ICT company owner, they are eligible for UDC support if they meet the other criteria that I'm not going to repeat. Then my last words, I like always to end with a word of comfort. I know the public is not very comfortable sometimes with government investments. They're like, our taxpayer money. Are you really making money?
Our money.
Yes, our money. Yes, it is your money, taxpayers' money, tax revenue. Yes, that's what UDC is using to invest. But I want to assure the public that your money is safe with UDC. Like I said, we are carefully choosing our investments. And when we invest with the private sector, we acquire a share certificate. So your money is safe. We also take positions on the boards of those investee companies to protect government interest and to ensure that these businesses live up to the objectives for which they are set up. I've had issues about accountability and transparency. I want to say UDC is one of the public corporations that is audited, and of course the reports are public resources. For the time we have, for as long as we have existed, we've always gotten a clean report. Yeah. So your money is safe with UDC. Thank you.
That's very encouraging to hear. A big thank you to you, Dr. Mildred Barungi, PhD, Manager Research, Monitoring and Evaluation at Uganda Development Corporation. Mr. James Muhezi, who is the spokesperson, but also the manager for partnerships and resource mobilization at the Microfinance Support Center, and of course Samuel Edem Maitum, who is head of credit at Uganda Development Bank, for being a part of Spotlight UG for this Monday. Lauren?
Yes, and also would like to thank those who are watching us live from NBS and UBC television. We thank you for that. And not only the people also who have been following us online on Afro Mobile, and also those who have been giving us their contributions and questions online. Also, thank you, Ben, for making me feel comfortable.
It's been an absolute
Tonight.
Pleasure.
It has.
I guess it's time for us to say
good night.
Good night. God bless you. And God bless Uganda.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasos, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've